Good morning, Arcade1up fans and enthusiasts. Welcome to my second attempt at a top 10 video, and we've got CES 2022 on our minds today. Let's talk about it. So it goes without saying that my arcade is absolutely complete. Once Tron's delivered in late December, I'm pretty much done buying these things for a long time. However, with all the hype around CES 2022, and the sky being the limit for what Arcade1up can pull off these days, seeing as they managed to pull off both Tron and Simpsons in the same year, I wanted to do a top 10 potential CES 2022 announcements from Arcade1up. So let's go ahead and recap what I said on Console Kit's video first, and go from there. Originally leaked by a Facebook user who I don't know the name of via an Instagram post by Noel Mirbao, this particular cabinet is easily the most accurate looking instance of a Atari cab in general. The coin door looks great, the control panel looks pretty much accurate, the J panel, although the smallest one, looks pretty much one for one with the original, and the control panel giving us a trackball spinner combo definitely gives me impressions that this is a legacy model, but some people feel that this could potentially be something else, some kind of partnership or online capable deluxe model, but for now, however, we're literally just gonna have to wait and see. Regardless, though, I hope this one comes to pass, because between Tempest and Centipede, I grew up with Centipede. So this really doesn't count as a leak, but more of a soft reveal. The Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 Midway Legacy Edition, good god that's a mouthful, was practically inevitable as a skin. There's plenty of fans of the game in the wild. The FCC listings for another cabinet also gave us a look at this one, or at least its side panel, making it rather interesting to see this course of action being taken. Personally, I would have rather seen this as the online cabinet, but that actually transitions into our next entry. This cab is basically hearsay, but it is inevitable. Obviously, an online model of the Mortal Kombat cabinet has been in the cards for a long time from the brand, but with two reskins on the way, it's really hard to say which one is going to be next. Really, all that's left is MK1, until you get to the 3D stuff. Of course, to properly make this cabinet doable without the likeness rights to Daniel Pencia, we'll need to see a MK1 cab design similar to the Fatality cabinet from MK3 or UMK3. Without a doubt, you will get MK1 through UMK3, however, original MK3 is also on the MK2 two-player countercade, so that's no longer off the table, even if it is inferior. The games that could also be included on here would be stuff like Rampage, Gore, Sinistars, Defender, Stargate, Root Beer Tapper, Arch Rivals, and maybe Demolition Derby if you really want to go for a unique lineup, even if most of this is just ridiculous repeat. Overall, though, I could see this have the Killer Instinct setup for Mortal Kombat to make it just tall enough to be, appealing to those people. Of course, this is all pure speculation and wish listing on my part, so let's head on to the next entry. So it goes without saying, and it's pretty obvious that Arcade1up has been working on Dragon's Lair for a long time and was clearly intending to have it released sometime this year. However, after considerable backlash about the mobile phone score screen situation, clearly Arcade1up went back to the drawing board to determine a plan B for this cabinet. Of course, Space Ace was also cancelled during this time due to a lack of popularity in the Notify Me section, according to John D. Now, of course, most of that isn't speculation, and the DMD part we'll never know for sure, but I really get the feeling that's the reason why this isn't even out yet. But I really get the feeling that this cabinet will be getting a release date next year at CES 2022, assuming they've got the DMD scoreboard situation handled. I suppose we'll know soon enough. Originally leaked by Randy's Records back in mid-2021, Track and Field would have likely been released along with Tron, X-Men, Simpsons, T2, and other releases. However, following the leak, virtually nothing has surfaced about this cabinet. The only price found was the Randy's Records price of $500 US, which I consider to be the golden price for these things. Of course, I could see this being announced correctly at CES 2022, and the games list is pretty self-explanatory, with Track and Field as the marquee title and Hypersports as the secondary. Of course, other games like International Track and Field could be included, but that is a 3D game that could have delayed it considerably to get it properly on there. But God forbid, this also could be a King of Fighters situation, where Konami decided to dip out after the leak. Either way, I hope this gets announced, if only for the Track and Field fans who've been wanting it since 2018. Alright folks, so it should go without saying here as well that from here on in, it's going to be heavy speculation territory. So, let's go ahead and get to number 5. Number 5. For the House of the Dead 2 Arcade1up Light Gun Cabinet. Initially leaked by 19K Fox through spy photos, the House of the Dead 2 for Arcade1up is expected to have a similar light gun setup to Big Buck Hunter, complete with the non-light-up marquee, still tiny 17-inch screen, but a rather promising game list of House of the Dead 1 and 2, along with Virtua Cop 1 and 2. I could see this leak actually holding some weight right now, primarily because the Simpsons cab that was also shown off looking like a MAME mod actually sports the prototype kickplate that was initially shown off at the CNET Arcade1up preview a few months ago. Of course, the spy photos also gave us a good look at the MK2 head-to-head and some other stuff, but that's pretty much all there is to be said about that. Of course, that being said, this would have to be done as far as programming the PCB goes to have this thing ready for a CES 2022 reveal. The source of the videos claimed back then that the cab was just a mock-up, and it looks pretty close to the original arcade version, so that's pretty cool, but the PCB wasn't done at the time. It's been months since that leak happened, and with the embarrassing price tag for Terminator 2 being $800, Arcade1up is gonna need a win now if they want to remain relevant. But I get the feeling the next one is gonna make this look relatively basic in terms of speculation. Number 4. Afterburner or Top Gun. So this potential reveal comes from a live stream related tease during a Console Kit stream some time ago, as some Arcade1up employees occasionally swap shirts throughout the stream, and one of them was wearing a shirt related to Top Gun. Officially, most people are under the assumption that this could be Afterburner, but I did a little bit more research on this and discovered that Top Gun did in fact have an arcade release in the form of Nintendo's Versus system. The Versus system was used from 1984 to 1990 and was based on NES hardware. Top Gun was in fact a Nintendo Versus game, and if this isn't a red herring, Arcade1up may potentially be working on a Nintendo cabinet with the setup required to just require a PCB upgrade occasionally and marquee art adjustment. This would be historic, as games like Donkey Kong, the Mario Bros, Castlevania, Excitebike, and so many others could see a proper home arcade release. Now, is it realistic to have this announced this year? Not really, but it would stir the fans of Arcade1up more than any release in history. Nearly every top 10 list I've seen for Arcade1up has Donkey Kong somewhere on it, but with this method, you would not need to get the art rights for anything but the marquee and the actual game itself, if they actually went this route, and bonus, you also get a 2-player game out of it. It's clearly something to think about, but if this is just a offhanded reference to Afterburner, then I imagine the games list would be Afterburner, Super Thunderblade, and most likely Space Harrier. The Thunder Trilogy Arcade1up Driver Cabinet at number 3. Now, we're getting into very heavy speculation territory here, but Ridge Racer has shown that 3D racers are clearly possible with this brand, expensive as hell, but possible. So what about a Thunder Trilogy cabinet containing Hydro Thunder, Arctic Thunder, and Off-Road Thunder? Well, obviously some concessions will need to be made to condense the 3 control schemes together, but I feel that merging Arctic Thunder and Off-Road Thunder's controls is perfectly doable. The 3D gameplay would also be very interesting to look at in its own right, but how would it be announced? Well, if they started working on it right after Ridge Racer, it's probably in mid-development right now, with a finalization on the initial prototypes and probably finalizing the rights, as they are still Midway games, and presenting it before investors at CES. If anything, this one is more than likely going to be a 2023 or 24 release, but a confirmation of its development would be pretty cool, or somebody getting a shot of it inside the trailer would be the coolest news in my opinion. Of course, it is still just my opinion. Number 2, Daytona USA Dual Driver Cabinet. So, this is a fully wishlist territory at the moment, but Daytona USA is most likely something I could see announced in mid to late 2022, either at the Summer Game Fest or completely off the books like they did with Tron and Ridge Racer and the other titles. But Daytona USA would easily be something they could do at this point since they managed to get Ridge Racer going. Of course, Daytona is a fan favorite, but unlikely to be sold as a standalone. Given current prices, the only smart way to sell this cabinet is with another cabinet, given the current bundling system that we saw with Pac-Man and also its Babycade. Of course, that would be very possible, but this cabinet would have to be sold with an updated seat, and an updated wheel with force feedback, rumble, and Wi-Fi, and also it would need to have the linkable setup for 2-player local. The current systems don't really lean on favoring online yet, but it's certainly something that they're almost ready for, and it's probably going to happen sometime within the next 4 or 5 years, if it isn't actually announced as soon as possible. So before we get to our number 1, which should be pretty frickin' obvious, let's go ahead and go over some honorable mentions. First off, the Taito Legacy Cabinet. The only proof of this one being in the cards is that John D liked my post about it, though it seems like that was done on a dare. And there's plenty of good Taito games that would be really cool on this cabinet. Space Invaders 1 through 4 would be a given, but can we please relegate the black and white version to a setting? It was really unnecessary to give it its own slot, but graphic overlays on the games that didn't have them would be pretty cool too. Space Invaders Deluxe and Kicks would obviously be pretty awesome in their own right. Elevator Action, also a great one. Bubble Bobble, Puzzle Bobble. There's a lot of games to choose from here. So the other honorable mention is Revolution X, because they did T2, so why not? It's not like it's going to hurt anything, and I doubt Aerosmith would say too much. Another one that I considered was the Jaleco Legacy Cabinet, just for the sake of arcade publisher completionists out there. Time Crisis, because it has a heavy fan following, and it's also a Namco game, so if they were able to pull off House of the Dead, I imagine this would be perfectly doable. And finally, you have the Golden Tee/Silver Strike Bowling Cabinet, which was initially hinted at back in 2019, I believe, but it got pulled off the floor before anybody could really say anything about it. And seeing as they are able to pull off Simpsons Bowling, this would be a cool CES 2022 reveal and December 2022 release, and there's plenty of Golden Tee and Silver Strike fans who would love to pick this up. Of course, at the end of the day, though, that's entirely up to you. Number 1, NFL Blitz. Come on, you really thought I was going to leave this off the list? NFL Blitz is easily one of the most requested Arcade1up cabinets ever. Its biggest struggle being the rights to the NFL players and likenesses, and the hardware's no slouch either. But if they can figure out how to make everything work and get everything settled, this fully 3D setup would certainly be a fun game to have in most arcade rooms. Personally though, I'm not a football person or a basketball person, so I could really care less. But at the end of the day, this is a general list, and most of what you're seeing on here is just my speculations and guesses. This could totally be way the hell off, but that's fine. At the end of the day, it's just speculation. In fact, what would you guys like to see at CES 2022? Leave your thoughts below, and we'll see you next time for our video before you buy X-Men. Have a good one.